Thank you very much, Carlos. And I have to say, not only another political scientist, but a graduate of a fine program at the University of just a tiny bit. I do have a couple of other messages from candidates who could not attend this evening, and I'll read them briefly, and then we'll start with questions and conversation. So the first one is from Bill McCamley, who's a candidate for the 2nd District, and is presently a Doña Ana County Commissioner in District 5. And this is written to Bill and Sally, who invited me. First, I want to apologize for not making your meeting on the 24th. Now that we have a primary, it is absolutely vital that we meet with as many people down in the district as possible, so canceling our October 24th meeting in Tularosa, where most of our volunteers from Alamogordo and Ruidoso will be coming, would be very difficult. I do, however, want to show you all that I am interested in your issues, that I'm interested in your issues and would love to keep your support in our primary. So I would submit the following brief summary of my views on U.S. foreign policy and how the UN works within that framework. I believe very strongly that the United States needs to work as a member of the world community, and that we are stronger when we work with our allies rather than try to do everything by ourselves. I do believe that military action is sometimes necessary, and I will tell you why. I spent several summers working at a summer camp called Seeds of Peace, which brings together children from conflict zones and forces them to live with and cooperate with those on the opposite side of the conflict. For example, Israeli and Palestinian children. During my 2nd summer there, we had kids from the Balkans, and I had to do a great deal of research on the situation there, including on the civil wars that happened during the 1990s. I firmly believe that if Clinton had not taken military action, then Milosevic would still be in power and the atrocities going on there would have continued. I do believe that we should work as hard as possible to have a foreign policy that stresses working with other nations to solve joint problems. Examples of these problems include global warming, nuclear proliferation, landmine usage, and the AIDS epidemic. I believe that the UN should be a facilitator for that, and that we should maintain our membership and expand our efforts in areas such as UNICEF, the World Health Organization, and the recent Nobel Prize-winning UN Scientific Council on Global Warming. Furthermore, I believe that many world conflicts can be dealt with through the mechanism of the United Nations, and if the Bush administration would have used this mechanism seriously, then we would be very far from the trouble we are in now. In short, I thought Clinton's policy of negotiation in such situations like Northern Ireland and the Middle East, and the limited use of military action in extreme cases like Haiti and the Balkans is sound. Using the UN to forward this structure should be a goal of ours. Simply put, the mission of the UN is admirable, and its record as a facilitator for disputes is good. Before we start talking about the subjects you bring up, however, there are issues with the UN that I would like to see addressed. An example of this is the election of the Sudan to the UN Human Rights Commission. Thank you for considering this stance, and I look forward to receiving any questions you all would have. Just don't ask me personally to respond to those questions. I figure we can find some way to send them on to Bill. And the final brief message is from Heather Wilson, Congresswoman for the 1st Congressional District and candidate for the United States Senate. She just has a few brief things to say about her position on the United Nations. And she says, the purpose of the United Nations is and should continue to be focused. It offers the United States a venue to pursue our national interests by diplomatic means. Our involvement in the United Nations should always be bounded by this sense of purpose. The UN is not a supranational authority, and it should not erode the sovereign authority of its member states. It is also important that the contributions of American taxpayers to the United Nations be spent wisely. We should insist on accountability from the UN and pursue a foreign policy based on U.S. national interest rather than some ill-defined internationalism. last, my friends. Now, I would like to do something, that will hopefully be done so smoothly that within a minute's time, everything will be ready. I think it would be appropriate for each of the candidates to take their chairs, bring them up here, and turn them around so that they can face the audience, so that it'll be easier to actually see the people who are asking questions and respond directly to them. Oh, and by the way, if anyone needs to get a bottle of water or an extra cookie, take a moment and visit the restroom if needed.